Hello. Are you studying ESOL at level 1? How good is your reading? Would you like to know a bit more about how reading tests work? If the answer is yes, well, this video could help you. I'm Kathy, and I'm going to talk to you about the different types of reading questions, which can sometimes be confusing, and give a couple of tips to help you. Are you ready? Let's go. The first most important tip is that you don't actually need to read everything. How weird is that, right? But look, you have a practice paper with 4 different texts, and each text will have 4 or maybe 5 questions about them. Now, that's not going to be asking you about every single word on the page, is it? So my top tip is read the questions first. Make sure you understand what the questions are asking you for, and then you can go to the text and focus your search on what you really need. Don't waste time on the bits that you don't need. Next tip. One of the questions will probably ask you about the purpose of the text. There's a brief list here of types of purpose a text may have. Now, sorry to tell you, but there's no shortcut to this. You need to learn these words and understand first what they mean. So practice that. Secondly, and this is a lot more difficult, you need to read different samples of text widely to help you start to recognize what the text might be for. This kind of understanding can only come with wider reading. So my advice to you is to get started. You have to try and match up what you're reading with those purpose words. Clues can be in the language. For example, if it's advice, a text with advice often features words such as should or other modals such as could or ought to, because it makes suggestions. Instructions can often feature imperatives or the words must or have to. Persuasive and descriptive language may feature lots of adjectives or positive accounts to influence you, whereas straight presentations of facts are likely to be information. You need to look at the options given to you in the question. There will always be 4. And if you are not entirely sure, start by working out what it's wrong, what it is not, before you decide. Now, I have a separate video discussing purposes of text in more detail, and I also recommend trying out word walls on this topic for your English level, as they can be fun but also useful. Here are some links. Tip number 3, learn about how text layout can make a difference to its meaning and purpose. A text feature means how does the text look on the page, and this is all about how layout influences your understanding of what you are reading. Typical features can be things like headlines, tables, bullet points. All of these help to identify key meanings and shape the overall look of a page. So here's an additional page with some suggestions about text features. Take a look. A popular question for this kind of thing could be, what text feature tells you this is a newspaper article? And answers for this example could be columns, a headline, or a byline, because you see all of these in a layout for a newspaper article. Also quite popular are questions about bold text. What's that for? Usually it's to make text stand out, make it easier for the reader to find. Sometimes it's used to identify headings or identify frequently asked questions known as FAQs. Bullet points are also popular to identify the most important points. Sometimes, but not always, it's a popular format for instruction texts. but they can be equally used to display key information. So if not sure, you then have to make a decision about the overall meaning of the text. Tip number 4, understand what language feature means. Well, what does that mean? If you have a question about language features, it will be asking you what actual words are used and what effect do they have on the reader. Examples of this will be things like, what language feature tells you this text is instruction? Well, the answer for this example would be imperatives. And if you don't know what an imperative is, it's a direct order using just the verb with no pronouns, such as this. Just do it. This is about how the words work to have an effect on you. And sometimes you have confusing multiple choice options, such as complex sentences, short sentences, use of the past tense. Generally speaking, that's trying to confuse you. They might not show you much in particular. One thing that might be asked is the use of the passive, which usually indicates that the text is written in a very impersonal style. Next tip, synonyms or word replacements. Identifying the meaning of words in a text is also a popular question. And in this type of question, you're asked about just one word in the text and given 4 possible meanings. Very often the question will suggest which word could replace this one in a sentence. And that's your clue. If you don't know the meaning of the word, you will need to read the sentence in its entirety and try to work out how it sounds using each of those 4 different words and decide whether it makes sense or not. Popular types of words are concept words such as factor or aspect. Sometimes you have a question about a pronoun and you need to read the sentence back to try and work out what the pronoun is referring to. Here's a simple example. We had an amazing trip and we really enjoyed it. So what does it refer to? In this sentence, the word it is used to talk about the trip. So that's the answer. Always read the sentence out loud in your head to try it out if you're not sure. Next tip, sequence of events questions. So what is a sequence? Sequence just means the order in which things happen. So first, next, after that, finally. Very often you see these points written out in a table of key facts and you just have to write the numbers 2, 3 and 4 against the facts you have read. Very often number 1 is marked for you. So you need to clearly find this information in the text you have read. Make some kind of mark on the paper where you found the information. Then you can work out the order in which you give the numbers. Now, one thing that could be confusing is when you have a table expecting 4 different points, but you have more than 4 paragraphs. A good tip here is don't number the paragraphs, because then you'll go wrong and you'll add in extra numbers like 5 and 6. That's not what they're asking you. Just find the information in the text and mark it. Once you have the 4 points, then you can add numbers just looking at the page to what came first, what was next, and so on, and get them in the right order. And that's how you work it out. Next tip, identifying the main point or message of a text. Sometimes there's more than one idea across a text, but which one seems the most important? A good way to start thinking about this is to read each paragraph first and decide on the main idea or piece of information in each paragraph. This will help you to start thinking about the main overall message. In the whole text, does one idea get repeated? Does it seem more important than others? Do the other ideas in the paragraphs relate to or depend on this one idea you have already read? If they do, that's probably the correct answer. Usually the possible answers will be shown to you as a multiple choice, so you don't have to make it up, just choose the best meaning. Check the possible answers carefully against the ideas you have found in the paragraphs. Sometimes the answers may seem like smaller points, but often there's just one big picture. Next tip, finding specific information in a text. You might need to use your skimming and scanning skills here to find one particular word. But often at level 1, you might look for words in a question that actually aren't there. Ooh, so don't spend too long looking for them. What you are more likely to see is words that have the same or a similar meaning. Now this is really testing your skills because it's testing your ability to understand question words, but then find something more. So you have to match the ideas. Time to put your thinking hat on. Of course, practicing reading as much as you can will help your understanding with this kind of question. Finally, inserting extra information. Some questions ask you to insert a line of information into the text, but you have to decide where it goes. And the question will say something like, "This sentence is best placed in which paragraph?" And you have to choose paragraph 1, 2, 3 or 4 most of the time. And again, this is about understanding the meaning of each paragraph first, and then trying to interpret the meaning of the sentence before you decide where to put it. And this can be the hardest one to work out sometimes. And you just need to try and identify the main ideas in the text before you think about the idea in the sentence you are looking at. It's not easy. If you're not sure, well, you might have a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right. So at least try guess. What have you got to lose? So read through a text carefully first. Remember, we said you might not need to understand every word to answer a question, so don't get stuck on little bits, groups of words or single words you don't understand. They might not even be important. You could be wasting your time. And then check the questions carefully as well. The words used in each question might give you more clues about what you're looking for. I suggest you mark each answer you choose in pencil first, just in case you want to change your mind, and then go back through afterwards and mark your answer in pen once you've made your final decision. Because remember, once it's marked in pen, you can't change it, so take your time to decide. And don't forget, if it's a multiple choice question, you can only choose one answer. So don't make the mistake of marking 2 because you will lose that point as well. That's not good. We have looked at the following different types of questions. Number 1, understanding the main points of a text. Number 2, understanding the main order or sequence of events in a text. Number 3, using text or language features. Number 4, replacing words in a text. Number 5, identifying the purpose of a text. And number 6, finding specific information in a text. Now, there is no quick fix for this if you don't practice your reading. However, armed with this knowledge, you might have a better understanding of what reading test questions are looking for at level 1. You do need to think really carefully about how you're answering questions. Good luck, and I hope you ace your reading test. Bye for now.